Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back to Full Throttle Talk. This is your favorite weekly automotive podcast, and we have an amazingly packed agenda today, so hopefully you guys are all ready. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, what's going on in automotive news. We're going to obviously talk about Porsches and Ferraris, and Dave just hit me with an absolutely hilarious two-car garage scenario, so stay tuned. We're going to have a great show. So Dave, we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to roll into it. Dave, let them know who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Epps. I am the founder and owner of Sunderwerks. We are a Porsche restoration and service and sales shop that is located in Cornelius, North Carolina, just north.
That's okay. Paul Kramer.
Yeah, you got the gist of it with Dave. My name is Paul Kramer. I am the owner and operator of Auto Kennel. We specialize in consignment of mostly Porsches, but a few other things. I operate the business with my dad, commonly referred to as the Ed, and you could find us at Auto Kennel on all the social media platforms or autokennel.com.
And I'll strongly suggest all of you, this should be your urgent homework from today's show. Get on Paul Kramer's email list. Paul put a description in it. The way he writes descriptions for his cars that he has for sale, and if you guys need to consign a car, consider doing it with him. He'll make your beat up old 944 that's been 14 car accidents sound like the most desirable thing on planet Earth. He'll talk about the history. He'll talk about the romance of the 3 accidents, but he'll sell the damn car. All right, Casey, let them know who you are and how they can connect with you.
My name's Casey Parkin. I am the owner of Group C Curation, which is a vehicle collection management company based out of the Mid-Atlantic, doing some other pivots in business currently, such as bring a trailer listings and such. And easiest way to find me is Group C Curation on Instagram.
All right, so let's roll in. And who am I? I'm just some guy that decided to put an automotive podcast together for fun, and it's actually turning out to be something pretty amazing. Starting out, I'd like to thank all of you who helped to make this for one day the #1 automotive podcast in the United States. That was quite a surprise to all of us. So we certainly appreciate your support. And just so I can be a tacky Instagram YouTuber, make sure you like and subscribe to the show so you can get the latest updates. All right, guys, let's start out. What is the greatest, coolest thing that happened in your world since our last podcast, automotively speaking? Dave, you can go first.
Okay. Well, we talked about this a little, offline, but for the last few months, we have been working on bringing back a very cool car, an 88. Well, I don't want to spoil the story, so let me just give you a little bit of background. But it's a slant nose 930 turbo. Car had been purchased by the owner back like 13 years ago, I think, and he went to sell the car, which he thought was a cabriolet. So back in 88, when the car was first delivered, it got in an accident. The insurance company wrote it off, and somebody maybe 10, 12 years later restored this car and turned it into a cab. So the guy thinks he's buying a slant nose cab, factory Porsche turbo though. So he ultimately then went to sell the car and discovered that the car was actually a Targa, and that somebody had cut the roof off this Targa. And so we ultimately were contracted to restore this car or bring the car back from being a packed up cabriolet to a Targa, one of only 31 that were ever imported into the US. So it's a rare car. And the real question, he wants to sell this thing. So we've put it back together. It's actually right over my shoulder right there. And we're gonna have it ready to go, and this car is already back together as a Targa. It looks beautiful. So we finished that up. We're gonna do a little interior work, and boom, it's off to the marketplace.
At what time in history was a Targa less desirable than a cabriolet that someone would do that? Was that just you think? I don't remember in all my automotive background history where that became more desirable. Paul?
Yeah, no, in Southern California, I know there were several shops that were key into doing it because the titles in California, I don't know about other states, they were listed as a convertible. And when you
Right.
look at, and Dave would know this, the way they're made is basically it's made as a convertible. And one of the tall tale ways of figuring out a Porsche that is a convertible versus a coupe is when you put your left foot on the clutch in a convertible, there's no room for you to get your foot past the clutch. The wheel well comes all the way up to the clutch pedal. If you're in a coupe, you could literally put your foot between the two. So that's how they strengthen the chassis. And back in the day, you bought a Targa, cabs were all the bomb, and people would
Yep.
just cut. Yeah,
Hack
all
them
you have
up.
to do is and Dave, you know this. All you have to do is unbolt the Targa top, cut it off. I can't remember what, but it
Yeah, you do
having
have to
a
cut
cab
it
was,
all off. So
but it's pretty
yeah.
easy to have a cab. To go to a cab,
Yep.
going back is considerably more difficult.
Is considerably more difficult. At the same time, there's so many, anybody out there looking at these cars, if you see anything pre-83 that's listed as a cab, you know it's been a cut Targa. So that happens a lot. And I'm shocked the amount of time that it happens because it really does devalue the car completely at that point. So I'll be really curious. Love to know your guys' thoughts. What's this car? I've seen them at auction, a Targa slant nose, so a 505 M505 Targa go for as much as a $500,000 right now. I think RM or somebody had one, I think last year that sold for about 500 grand. And this car's got low miles. It's under 20,000 miles on this car from new.
Well, let's have
So
people actually put in comments. If you're on YouTube or Instagram or wherever, what do you guys think? What do you think a previously very rare car that's been, let's just say messed around with a bit? What do you think that thing's worth in today's market? All right, so that's a
yeah,
really good thing. Hey, I just sent you a WhatsApp, by the way, Dave. Hey,
okay.
Paul, you're up next. Aside from the fact that I noticed that you're actually meandering from your true purpose on the planet, which is poisoning everyone to the Porsche brand.
Yes.
Go ahead. So tell them about your Lotus.
Well, I think anyone who's into cars, this was muchly anticipated, was the Amira. I think it was sadly delayed for, I don't know, 3 years. I think most of the people who put down deposits put them down with the mind of flipping them. And so there is quite a few on the market. But I know some of my friends I do rallies with in vintage cars, they were buying the Amira because I think it's one of the last outside of Porsche brand true enthusiast driven cars. I mean, it feels as analog as I felt in a modern car in a long time, but I wanted to drive it. We just got this one in, and by the way, it's sold as of last night. But it only has 650 miles, so I didn't get to. This was, I mean, what I call an automotive lap dance. I did a 10-mile freeway cloverleaf, and what I really wanted to do is take it to the mountains. I don't know if any of you guys have driven an Amira, but to drive it on a nice back road, it doesn't have the power, but I think these cars are going to do what Lotuses do and plummet for 10 years. And I think in 10 years, when people stop benchmarking them against a Cayman GTS 4.0, and it's not about stats on paper, it's about just, kind of the butt dyno fun driving. These cars are really fun to drive.
Aren't they like 100 grand too? It isn't Lotus doing in SoCal doing crazy deals on finance on those things now?
Yeah, so the MSRP this one was 97,000. Most of them were sold with about a 10,000 ADM, dealer markup. I think this owner paid about that. We sold it for what we listed for, which was 90. There's for I don't know what the production number is for US, but there's not a lot of them. And there was over 250 right now listed on Auto Trader across the country, and just like this owner, he waited it out. He finally got it, and the only reason he kept the order was he thought he would make a quick 10 grand, and instead he's going to probably lose a quick 25 grand. And
So those were people were buying them to flip. Now, is that the 6-cylinder or the 4-cylinder with the Mercedes
the
motor?
6-cylinder. So the Mercedes one only came with a dual clutch. The
Ah,
V6, and it was turbocharged. The V6 is supercharged and comes with a manual. And if you've driven a Lotus Elise, it is very similar to that manual. A very bolt action. It doesn't feel electronic. It doesn't auto blip. It just is an old school manual. And the rumor I've seen online is there's something with emissions and something with different production that V6, which is also basically out of the Highlander, Toyota Highlander, may not come to the US and it may drop the manual. I don't think they can do the manual with the 4-cylinder. So that'll be interesting. If this ends it, I don't know what the values will do, but I just think from a driver standpoint, these things are a lot of fun. And as badly as I wanted a 991.2 Carrera T, I would For this money, I'd strongly consider one of these.
It's like half price. And, but the thing is, those Lotuses do find their floor. I mean, Lotus leases all day long. What are they, 35 grand basically for one of
Well,
miles?
I would say the better comparison is the Evora. It's basically an Evora that's not a kit car anymore. It looks like a regular manufactured car. So you look at Evora GT, whatever the floor of those are, that I'm guessing like right now 60 grand. That's probably what these are going to go to. And I think they're going to, I mean, I was literally thinking about this. If I were to buy something like this, I would go to my aftermarket warranty guys and see how long of a warranty I get. Because my only fear isn't the Toyota crap, it's the Lotus crap.
Are those still made in England, or are those cars? I think isn't Lotus Chinese now?
I think they're made in England, but I don't know much about them, who owns them.
Yeah, you're right. Then you should be definitely worrying about the Lotus end of things.
Electrical.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Casey. So, anything interesting in the last week or so in your automotive life?
So this week we're only going to talk about other people's cars that I drove, which is a fun time. Uh, Last Friday, I was messaging Paul about this, and I think you as well. There are very few cars that scare me due to value. And one car that scares me more than any other is a 27 RS lightweight. They only made 200 of them. This is one of few finished in Gulf blue. And to me, it was the car that I grew up with the poster of it on my wall. I've had a model of it for a very, very long time in my office. And I drive it sparingly. It was a fully restored car. I got out in it, was able to wind it up just a little bit. I practice a lot of mechanical sympathy with the older ones for all the obvious reasons. But it was an awesome experience. That was something that I'd tell you that it was rather calm. And then yesterday, I also messaged you guys. I look after a really highly dialed 944 turbo, which is the absolute other end of the spectrum from a 2.7 liter RS. And honestly, it had been a bit since I've been out in one. The weather in the mid-Atlantic yesterday was perfect. And I wound it up and I was doing go to jail speeds allegedly everywhere that I went. The car felt so good. Everything on it functioned perfectly after a little valve tap went away after the beginning, really wrung it out. It's been breathed on a little bit. It's got factory turbo cup suspension, and literally everything just hit so right yesterday that made me come back, and I was just shivering because it was such a great experience. It really is just a great proof that you don't need to spend $1 million to get that fizz.
That's awesome. I love that story. I'm really curious. You guys, every time what Paul has spoken, romantically about a 73 RS. I've never driven one. I really do need to drive one. I'll tell you what I think without having driven one. I don't think there's any way that it feels that different from essentially a well restored 911 of the era, say an S or something like that. Paul insists that I'm wrong, and I probably am. Have you ever driven a 73 RS, Dave?
I have not.
Yeah. So it's just like when people talk, there's a lot that goes along with the whole RS, lore that I think psychologically probably has a pretty strong effect on anyone who's a Porsche nerd. So same goes for this 964 RS. You guys are telling me that it's the greatest thing ever. You especially, Casey, and I've yet to drive one, but I'm really tempted to drive it. I want to know if you can feel that seam welded chassis. I want to know how different it feels with no insulation in it and all the rest of it. I have to have that experience to really truly understand, which is, you said this last week, Casey, which is really true. It is hard to encapsulate the emotional resonance you have with a car in words, because it is some sort of emotional attachment. But what I often wonder is how much of that emotional attachment is less about the actual experience and more about the nostalgia, because it's you're connecting to something in your past. It's probably a combination of the two.
I think it's a combination. And I think, going to your point about the 73 RS, if you drove a really great clone, would it be the same experience?
Yeah.
I think you could achieve a very similar, if not identical, experience with a great clone RS, but I don't think you could do it with a 964 RS. I think there's something about the way that car is built that's significantly different. That maybe it's a seam welded chassis, maybe it's whatever magic dust they put into the suspension. I don't know, but the RS. I think the reason the values are so high is they are amazing cars to drive. And if you have the money, I don't think you're going to be the type of person that wants to go to a show and have a great true reproduction RS. It's like having a replica Speedster when you can afford the original one for some of these clients that own them, is my guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. That makes sense. So the only update I have is I still don't have the pricing. Get ready for Paul to laugh on what a new 296 Speciale costs. They still haven't told us, but there are people that are starting to figure out the pricing. I have some friends in Germany who are have put together what just the, you guys remember the release colors with that green that Paul loves and the different stripes. Well, it turns out every one of those little painted elements is a lot of money, and it's like the green is, from what I can tell, is $38,000 extra. The stripes, okay, if you want the stripes with the numbers, that's extra. So altogether, the way that the green car was presented, the Speciale Coupe, was with probably, I'm guessing, close to $50,000 or $60,000 worth of paint options. And in Ferrari world, unlike Porsche world, I was going to say this on our last podcast, there is no, you don't get it back. So in Porsche world, everyone loves PTS. In Ferrari world, it doesn't really amount to a hill of beans when it comes to putting the car for sale. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Matter of fact, one of my friends works at a, well, I don't want to out him, but the gist of it is he is one of the top Ferrari sales people in the United States. And I was asking for his advice. He's not my Ferrari salesperson. And he said, avoid all those things. If you have even one inkling of, or one little, iota of caring about resale value, because you don't get your money back. So I just thought that was it's so different than Porsches.
So let me get this straight. They will take your order for this new Ferrari, but they won't tell you how much it is.
Okay, I'll even make it better. You'll even like this abuse even more, Paul. So not only will they, the Ferrari dealers were given a number of how many cars they were allocated. Then they're being told now what the deposit has to be. And some of the dealers, my dealer is not doing this, is taking the deposit without the owners knowing what the cost is, let alone what the cost of the options are. So the release price in Europe amounted to $440,000, a lot of money. And so that's euros to dollars, that's how I figured that out. So if they're going to release it in the United States at say $450,000, how much in options based on what I just told you are people going to be sticking on these things? So exactly. And this goes to conversation Casey and I were having prior to actually hitting, I think 200,000. I think you're going to see people with $600,000 or $700,000 296 Speciales. And I'll tell you honestly, where my mind goes, I'm really wondering the sanity of all of it, because it's just getting too expensive. I'd rather get, and we'll talk about that later, but it is getting to the point where it doesn't really truly make sense because there's so many really amazing options out there. It's a quagmire, because getting the ability to financially getting the ability to buy one and then having the I don't even know how to say it, but right to buy one or getting offered one, it doesn't come easily. And it's taken me a long time, but now I'm at this point. It's your freaking influence, Paul Kramer, that, where now you got to start saying, well, maybe a 73 RS is not a bad alternative, or 964 RS isn't a bad alternative. Maybe you guys can help me kind of work through these processes. This is kind of like our group thing.
Venting.
I'm telling you, my wife is totally burned out on hearing me, work. I know, stupid problems. I get it. Stupid problems for stupid people is what Julie says. That's my wife, 34 years of marriage.
I mean, if you've owned a used car dealer as long as some of us have, it is so hard to buy something new. It just hurts. It hurts inside.
Well, so Paul, let's move. You are about to take an amazing trip to Germany. It's not on our agenda, guys, but Paul and I've been sending you some suggestions, but I'm sure you, after all this time, have really thought about your plans. Please let the world know where perhaps the world's most ultimate Porsche nerd enthusiast is going to go on his dream vacation to Germany.
Yeah. We leave on Friday. It's myself and my dad, and one of my friends who's not a car person was sort of dumbfounded that I wouldn't take my wife, because they don't understand a trip of 2 weeks with every day doing immense amount of car stuff. And I said, I don't think she'll be on board with it. But basically, we fly on Friday to Frankfurt, and 2 weeks later, we leave out of Munich. So that's kind of in the northern part of the country, going south, hitting Austria. I mean, we land on Saturday, and Monday we are at the Nürburgring in a Golf R with an instructor. And the funniest thing was my dad, he has he hears about the Nürburgring. He doesn't understand the Nürburgring. So he's like, well, we'll just get the rental car and we'll just kind of go out there. I said, well, yeah, you can't. The rental car companies don't let you. But I go, this is a racetrack. Yes, there'll be Wahoos out there, but like we've never been there. We need an instructor. I want helmets. I'd prefer a cage. We're not going to have that because there's going to be a back seat. And so I started sending him videos, not the Nürburgring crash videos because that wouldn't go well, but I just started sending the videos of a guy in a regular car or like a Golf getting passed by GT3 RSs and then passing motorcycles. And he then just goes, oh, this isn't just go cruise around on a track. I go, no, no, very different. So
have you guys ever been on that track? Have either one of you? I've never been on it.
No.
Do you guys sim race at all? Do either of you? Okay, so I sim race.
No.
I've got a whole sim racing rig. And let me tell you, that track is a freaking nightmare on the sim race. It is horrible. It is so freaking hard. And I love to race on tracks in real life, and I would be mortified to go out on that, to be honest with you. That is, I mean, Paul, you've seen it, right? You've seen how it's like, okay, now and then all of a sudden you're like this, and now you're driving up on bricks, and it's scary.
Well, I think the hard part watching lots of videos of it is you have to be full throttle on the early apex of a turn on a blind turn because when you're coming out of it, you're on a long straightaway. And
Yeah.
that, if you've done racing, I did 10 years of club racing, just that confidence that if I have to be in the right place at this apex, full throttle, so when I come out, I have enough track out exit room left. And looking at the videos, the first thing I said was like, Dad, we have to have an instructor. So we've got an instructor for a day. We'll see how that goes. Highlights of the trip that I'm most excited because I have many friends who work at Porsche. In fact, Torsten, who designed our logo, is taking over Grant Larson's job. He's the head of special projects.
Wow.
We're going to get to meet with him. He did this when he was just a young student out of Stuttgart Design School 25 years ago. And we're going to be on Monday, and a week from Monday, going to Roof, which I'm very excited. We have a tour of Roof, which is probably the highlight of my trip. And then we're also we're working with Freeman Thomas and some of these other people that are ingrained with Porsche to get something special at Fat Mankai. It's like their version of Good Vibes Breakfast Club. They have up in the Glocker Pass a mountain coffee shop with a cool road. My friends have been sending me videos of driving that road in the speed cameras, and half of them say, "Don't worry about it. They're not going to get you. Just get tickets." The other half say, "If you rent your car through this company, it's 20 euros for every ticket you get," which might be worth it. Which, by
It's
the
totally
way,
worth it.
we are renting an Audi, the most powerful. It's hard to get powerful rental cars. It's an Audi A6 45 Avant, which is a 7-speed dual clutch, 280 horsepower. Speed limited. I couldn't find anything that was non-speed limited to 155. It will go much faster, but obviously the Autobahn 155 is going to be the max.
It's you and Ed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paul, there's places to rent 911s all over Germany. Some of the hotels will even, I don't know how expensive it is, but I did research this, and there are lots. I was going to send it to you. So,
that I looked at the rentals for those, and the biggest challenge, kind of like if you ever rented a Turo car in the U.S.
and then this year, first year.
Okay, so like especially when there's a car event, I see people rent Turos even for rallies, and the biggest problem with them, and I don't know if it's the same in Germany, is the tires are legal, but they are not tires you want to be aggressive. Like mismatched tires, at the wear indicator are barely. So that was my fear, is getting one of these Porsches from a private rental and having it. Yes, it's a 911, but something I wouldn't feel comfortable going, 150 miles an hour in.
Well, let's be honest. A Turo, which is in essence a VRBO for cars, and renting cars or doing anything in Germany has to do with automotive probably are not the same experiences. But the Audi's pretty badass too. So you are going to be hitting the Autobahn, it sounds like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my dreams, I'm trying to set it up. I don't know if Alois Roof will be there. Is to get a ride in some version of a Yellowbird, new or old, with Alois Roof driving it. Like, me passenger side, video the speedometer on the Autobahn, because they're right near the Autobahn, and that's kind of my goal.
All right, let's do a call out. Anybody who has connections with Roof, please help a brother out. Get him set up for the VIP tour. And here, make it so that Alias has the goal of trying to make Paul barf. I mean, that would be fantastic. By the way, did you watch that Harry's Garage video that he recently put up? Did you watch the whole thing? It was long.
He's got the Turbo S, the 930 Turbo S.
Yeah, but did you see
Yeah.
he went to the I'm going to say Sunderwerks, but however it's pronounced in Germany.
Sunderwich.
Sunderwich.
That was. It's funny. I didn't know. I watched that video a couple nights ago, and I'm trying to figure out how to get to the classic, that little room, because I don't think it's part of the regular tour. But with my friend Torsten, I'm gonna see if I can get to go to it because that looks interesting. I mean, I'm sure Dave and Casey could agree to be able to see them. Those are the factory classic restorations, which I would be most interested in.
Did you guys watch that video? Sorry, Casey.
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it yet.
I watched it a bit ago. And Paul, I'll tell you that Classic takes place at two different places. If I'm not mistaken, there's one, I can't remember the name of it, outside of Stuttgart, but there is the small Classic restoration and workshop that is at the museum. And another thing that you can do at the museum is Porsche, through the My Porsche app, has something called Porsche Drive, where you can rent cars directly from the Porsche Museum. My wife and I took a big trip to Germany when we took a Euro delivery of an RS a couple of years ago, and it was aspirational for me to drive a 911 in Germany. The RS is not something that I took because it was a client's vehicle, but we rented a C4S, and it was pouring rain, and we rented it directly from the museum itself. I think it was about 500 euros for the day. And it was super bright shark blue. Definitely not what I would pick, but honestly, it was so perfect because the pictures of the car turned out awesome because it was so gross outside. But we went up through the Black Forest, through these small little towns, and it was something I'll absolutely never forget. So I can send that to you, but it's Porsche Drive directly from the Porsche Museum.
Yes.
And you might be a little close to it. We booked ours like 3 or 4 months in advance, but they might have some sporty car there available for you to rent.
Yeah, no, good idea. Please do send it. I'm constantly adding so many things to the list. I'm trying to get to Austria. We're saving like 3 days for Austria, and I'm like, I've been. My dad wanted to do this trip in 7 days. I wanted to do 3.5 weeks, and we settled on 2 weeks. But I can see needing another week.
Well, there's a really awesome town called Lindau, which is right on Lake Constance, which is in southern Germany. Really recommend checking that out if you have the opportunity.
Yeah,
That's incredible. Well, make sure you're posting a lot of Instagram. And if you can't be on the podcast the next 2 weeks, we certainly understand. But definitely, if you are, we're going to do nothing but other than talk about it. This is going to become a Porsche travel vlog. That's what it's going to become. No, that's incredible. Yeah. So did you guys, in that Harry's restoration video, did you hear Harry tried to feel out from the guy what the start price would be for Porsche to do a restoration, just the start price?
I was watching it. He was squirming because I think, I mean, Dave, you would know how much if you bring in a shit box like 912 and you want to restore it. I mean, whether it's a 911S, an RS, a 912, I mean, a lot of this stuff's the same. I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, you start at a 2. And then
he said 3, dude.
Yeah. And so, but I was thinking like, that's like a normal shop. And then you go to Porsche Classic, which you then add 30%. So I was like 3, but like that RS that was in there, I mean, you could spend $500,000 restoring an RS easily. And I kind of wonder, like, what does Porsche do when you can't get the parts? Are they just going to get a reproduction part?
Well, you know they do.
You know, from an old car, maybe.
Oh yeah. Well, no, when we were restoring a 73E, it had flared fenders. We bought a fender from Porsche Classic. And we got the fender, and it was from Restoration Design or some other. They just rebranded it, and in the end, it fit so crappy. We ended up just using the original one and having to do body work.
Isn't there somebody that's making a whole new shell for like a G body on older? Isn't there somebody that was tooling that up for a while? And I thought I saw somebody else was planning on making a complete shell, a complete unibody out of carbon fiber. Have you guys, do you know anything about that?
No, I mean, it sounds rad.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, the metal body I saw actually on Instagram, and it was a guy in China, of course, and he was making. Did you see this, Casey?
I saw that. It was a 964. Yeah, they had a whole body, and they had, I think they maybe even had a Defender sitting next to it.
They did.
It was a little scary to see that, but I mean, it was really interesting to see. It would be really cool to see, a factory fresh one and that one next to each other to see how right it is. And I mean, I've used
The video made
restoration.
it look
Yeah.
to the video made it look to me like it was a 3/4 size or something. It looked really peculiar when I saw the video. It just didn't look like a full size car. I mean, it probably was, but it was a Defender. I think there was a Ford Bronco the guy was there with as well. It's just, okay, what's the tariff going to do to that too?
The
Nope.
Sunderwerks thing, Casey, did you see that they actually were doing a lot of they're taking Carrera GTs and 918s, and then they were re-specifying them. People were taking those cars in, having them repainted in a different color, having the upholstery redone, essentially personalizing them. And because it's done at Porsche, it supposedly doesn't diminish the value. I don't know if that's true. If you had a Carrera GT and you had Porsche redo it and you wanted it to be in some cool, one-off color, does that diminish it since it's not the color that it was born with, or does it matter because Porsche is the one that changed the color? What do you guys think?
I think if Porsche did it, it adds to the value. So
Really?
I saw when I was at Air Water 2 years ago, they debuted a blue one. That was on a stand. I don't remember who owned the car, but it was quite stunning. Then there was a green one done before that, and then if I'm not mistaken, um, Dave, were you at Platica this year?
No, I didn't make it. We were
So
going to go, but we didn't make it.
so if I'm not mistaken, there was a purple one there, but it wasn't painted. It was tinted carbon fiber that was purple. Um, so I'm all about this. And a cool thing when I was at Porsche Classic in Atlanta about a year ago and visited the Classic Center, and the body wasn't there, and I can't talk much about it because I can't. But there is there was someone getting a 4-liter recommissioned. Um, and I heard some kind of they were very close-lipped, but I kind of knew a little bit about it before I got there. But when I started prying a little bit, like I saw boxes of like 4-liter parts sitting around, and I was like, oh, I know what this is. So I'm assuming that maybe in the next year or so, you're probably going to see, you know, not an original paint to sample 4-liter, but something that's going to be insanely special.
Huh. Interesting. Well, yeah, I think that's great, honestly, because it creates a new, frankly, a new trend for these manufacturers. But was Pagani? I mentioned I won't, talk too much about it, but that's a big bit of Pagani's business. Is I'm not going to say recommissioning, but just to encapsulate it, that is what they're doing. They'll take, you buy your used Pagani, or now you buy your used Porsche, you send it back to the mothership, and they then do it however you wanted to have it done. That's kind of a fascinating trend, I think. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would love it because then we stop dealing with paint meters and original color. Because Ferraris, for years, vintage Ferraris, changing the color didn't seem to do anything to the value.
That's right. Matter of
And
fact,
and
yeah.
and I was
No,
just baffled by it. But Porsche guys freak the hell out, and I don't get it.
well, I mean, it's a different type of buyer, We talked about this, Paul, a couple podcasts ago. It definitely attracts, Porsches definitely attract more analytical types who like to really have this very specific, this, and the other things, more so than maybe, I don't know, other brands as well, but certainly more than Ferrari guys. Ferrari guys, a lot of the new buyers are definitely lifestyle type purchases, where the classic Porsche. Now, if you get into the classic Ferrari guys, those guys are real fanatics too, but Porsches were made more precisely originally, and the Ferraris weren't. So you could have deviations, variations of the same model from car to car to car to car. So, I don't know. You can't be as precise with Ferrari as you could be with Porsche. So let's move on to automotive headlines. Assuming you guys have had any time this week during your crazy busy schedules to study any recent automotive headlines. Anything pop out at you, Dave?
No, Paul, excuse me, no, Tim, I would say I didn't get any automotive headlines. That wasn't part of my prep for the week, so I apologize. You
All right.
carry on.
Carry on. Paul, anything for you?
No, I've been focused on Germany, so I haven't looked at any any significant automotive headlines, besides the Wienermobile race in Indianapolis, which was a joke.
Casey, it's funny. All of us are so busy. We didn't read headlines. It's unfortunate.
Other than following the Formula One race over the weekend, which I thought was pretty crazy, the amount of contact and such that was happening between the drivers. I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at automotive news. What did you think of the F1 race?
I thought that I liked it. I actually like it when people show emotion. If you guys don't follow F1, what happened is during the race, Max just decided to give somebody a smack going 200 miles per hour, 200 mile per hour smack.
Yeah,
You know,
wasn't it George? He hit George Russell. Was it
yeah,
George
yeah.
Russell?
He
Yeah,
hit George Russell.
and the funny thing is, didn't he still get driver of the day?
Of course. You know, what's very fascinating to me is how the new generation of Formula One fans, I've been watching it since the early 90s, but this new generation of Formula One fans, they definitely seem to have a preference for these warm and fuzzy type drivers, which is bizarre to me because I want them to be real sons of bitches. I want them to be vindictive. I want them to figure out ways to, like, you know, go after each other. That's what real, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but you know, I'll ask you guys this question. So Lewis Hamilton basically is with Ferrari. Michael Schumacher was let go from Ferrari about the same age that Lewis Hamilton has now been essentially adopted by Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton is consistently underperforming his Charles Leclerc and a lot of other people. So is Lewis Hamilton, was that a smart, you know, move on Ferrari's part aside from the financial benefits? And I don't know if you guys knew this, but when Lewis Hamilton became a Ferrari driver, that Ferrari stock went up by, like, in one day, like $1 billion or something. So from the sake of shareholders, everyone made money, but from the sake of winning races, that does not seem like the most strategic of moves. What do you guys think about that? Do you have any opinions?
I think a lot of it
Like
comes
any,
down to, oh, go ahead, Dave.
no, you go, Casey. I'll follow up.
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, fresh advertising. I mean, I think how many Ferrari t-shirts are sold compared to Ferrari cars that are sold? And I think if you look at it from that regard, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Lewis Hamilton, one of my favorite racing drivers, I followed him since way back in the day. I think my first year watching F1 was 2007. And then I always have supported Lewis Hamilton, and I was happy because this was his dream. But honestly, I feel it was more of a fashion marketing decision than an absolute driver decision. But it was his aspiration to always drive for Ferrari. So kudos to him. And I was honestly kind of sad when he went from McLaren to Mercedes back in the day.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And furthermore, I'm super duper tired of having every Formula One it be about what they're freaking wearing. I could care less. I don't give a rat's ass about what you're wearing to the track. I don't care
Yeah.
about your little cute dog. Seriously, I don't.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Let's start getting back to focusing on. And furthermore, the reason that a lot of people were critical of the Monte Carlo race, and nobody said this, is because the cars are big fat pigs now. You can't pass on that track because the cars are freaking whales. They're racing Suburbans now. There's so much wrong with Formula One, but still, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you, Tim. I think they need sort of the good guy, bad guy adversarial. And I hear them, you know, they go out to dinner afterwards to say sorry. And no, you want them to punt the other guy at the next race.
Totally. Do you remember when Michael Schumacher, who was that? I forget who the other driver was, who basically he hunted him down in the pits and practically punched him out. That's the kind of thing I
Yeah.
want to see coming back.
Or at Monaco, just screw up the whole race by putting it into the wall and causing a red session. Like,
Totally.
and the funny thing, when they interview him, I mean, he acted dumb as a fox. It was hilarious.
Dumb as a fox. Yeah, he did. He pulled it off the side right on the racing line and caused the guy who was
Yeah.
about to have a better track time to go
Yeah.
slower. We
Well,
need to
Tim,
get back to
that's
that.
Yep.
that's NASCAR. That's
Yeah.
what you get in NASCAR, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you got to follow some of that. These guys are punching each other out all the time.
I think you might be right. Maybe I just need to change my preference for automotive
Or
racing.
what if F1 cars had like bumper car things? So you get like 2 or 3 bumps before you actually damage your car, like a protective zone on the splitter or the wing. So you could bump someone like twice before your wing comes off. So everyone gets 2 taps a race or something like that. That would be fun.
Maybe.
I think what they need to do is all the F1 drivers need to get in British touring cars, and they need to race Monte Carlo in British touring cars or Australian V8 supercars, and then no holds barred. Just let them race, let them Rubbins racing. Because I mean, that's one thing that I believe in the United States. It's so hard to watch British touring car anymore. You used to be able to watch it on Speed Vision, and it just doesn't exist. You have to have a VPN server. You have to go through this or that. I don't think there's any better racing than watching back in the day people like Jason Plato and Max Chilton running into the side of each other in some weird Ford Contour that we've never seen before on Brands Hatch or one of those tracks that you kind of remember from Forza or Gran Turismo back in the day. I really believe that if they brought that type of style to F1, like a little bit more, I don't know, like you said, make the cars a little bit more resilient. I mean, I know that it's hard with open wheel, that if, wheels touch, it's terrifying, especially at the speeds that they go, but maybe they don't need to go 220 miles an hour,
Or
make
maybe
it,
they just
make
need
it more interesting.
But Casey, maybe they just need to be man up and just put up with being terrified. I mean, come on now. We're too much focus on, whether or not Lewis's shoes matched his belt and how cute his bulldog is, which it is a great bulldog. And less on, real sportsmanship. It just doesn't even make any sense to me. But, it's become a mass produced product. So that's really at the end of the day, they're trying to appeal to the most people. And did you guys hear this? The greatest increase in viewership is by women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's more to do with the Amazon series. I mean, it's made these, it'll be interesting. You can always tell who they're targeting by what the new commercials show up to be. So if we have
Louis Vuitton, dude, Louis Vuitton's a major sponsor now. Boom. The cat's out of the bag. They're wanting to sell purses. Well, I mean, the new Formula One movie that's coming out at the end of June, I think that's probably going to be pretty good. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
And speaking of that, I just got invited to through the Checkered Flag 200, which is the Peterson Museum, on June. What was it? It's the week I get back, right before it launches, a preview of the movie at a really old vintage theater in Orange County. So
that sounds incredible. Give yourself a day or two for jet lag, especially coming back, Paul, especially going to California. That's brutal.
And just speaking about racing, one news thing I forgot to mention, because my friend's going there as a guest of Ford, but Ford is at Le Mans this year again. It'll be interesting because I think they're really pushing to, I think it's the LM GT3 class, which will be against the Porsche GT3s that have dominated, and I think the Corvettes. And they're really pushing to try to get a podium this year in a Ford, because they are planning on coming back in 27 with a prototype, which I know this has to do all with Jim Farley being, such a race nut.
I'm going to ask you guys a random question and give me a random answer. What have you guys been paying attention to the new ZR1? And I've been bringing this up, but I cannot figure that in my mind. I realize we all want to say, well, it's doing what Corvette's always done. The USP is to offer, be the best value and whatever. I think Corvette has jumped the shark with this car. What they're doing on the track negates the whole thesis that Corvette's only about certain types of performance. I don't understand that car for the money. It seems to me like it's such an incredible game changer. It excites me to the point where I absolutely want to drive one. We're in North Carolina for a couple months, and I put on my summer goals list going down to Kentucky and seeing where they're being made in Bowling Green, just to have the experience of seeing one and having them made. That in itself might turn me off to them. But that aside, what do you guys think about this ZR1?
If you're going there, should I send you a pair of jorts and New Balance so you can?
Bro, do you not notice the plaid? I mean,
that's just part way. Well, it should be a t-shirt with stains, but I think you need denim shorts and some the whitest of white New Balances.
Okay, I'll remember that. Yes, New Balance. You can still buy New Balances?
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Welcome back to the 90s. So, but do you guys think the ZR1 is going to make a difference on? So if I'm in the market to buy something like that, and I actually want to take it on the track, and this car can survive on the track, and it's $200,000 because I did spec one, on the configurator, and then you go compare it to similar cars, and I actually want to drive it on the track. That's one of my missions. I'm sorry, I'm really hard thinking the GT4 RS. I'm really thinking twice about certainly a McLaren. I'm not necessarily GT3 RS. The ZR1 seems it weighs 600 pounds more, and it's so much faster. I've raced on Coda, and I was in a Ferrari, and I was also in a McLaren, and I was also in a Cadillac CTSV wagon, which is hilarious. But on the Coda track, I know what the lines are, especially the harder ones. And I know where it understeers, oversteers in the McLaren, which handled amazingly. And these guys, the amateur drivers and the ZR1s, were going so much freaking faster than I was able to go when I was scaring the crap out of myself. So this car, I think, is something really extraordinary. You guys have any opinions on that? You don't have to agree.
No, I actually do. I do agree. And actually, the guy I'm selling or sold the Amira for, that's why he sold it, is he's got an order for one of those.
Ah, good. Dave, what do you think?
Well, I think it's, it's the difference between American and European cars. I mean, there's definitely a contingent that wants to buy US product that is at the pinnacle of automotive engineering. And it's an amazing car. I think it's full of a bunch of doodads and so on that I don't particularly like. I've had a chance to drive one or two, not a ZR1, but there are a few guys that I know that I would say it tends to be something where they age a little bit more, and then they'll flip out of something like a Porsche and they move. And I don't know, maybe that's just the rite of passage, move into a Corvette. But I mean, it's quite a car from what I saw. I saw a YouTube video. Somebody had a drag race between, I think there was a Lambo and a Ferrari in this car,
It
and this
was
car won. Yeah,
not just one a little either. And there was
yeah,
another
it
one
won a
where
lot.
yeah, it won a lot. But the real, again, I think the thing that's really astonishing is how well it does on really, really complicated old 1950s and 1960s US tracks. And the fact that it can better even these crazy track focus 675 LTs and all the rest of it, that is astounding. What do you think, Casey?
In my 2 decades of selling and representing Porsche, unfortunately, I'm going to have to put my hat on. But I remember back in, let's say, what was it, 2007, 2008, when this thing called the R35 GTR came to the United States, and we were all terrified that we'd never sell 911 turbos again. I mean, you kind of see how that worked out. And then about every 3 or 4 years, something would tick up. As the Z06s, as they proceeded through the years, the ZR1 when it came out a zillion years ago. I remember going to the Corvettes at Carlisle show and seeing one of those there with the glass or the plexiglass in the middle of the hood where you could see the supercharger. I grew up in the passenger seat of a 1960 Corvette, so I do understand the allure of the Corvette. I met Zora Duntov at Corvettes at Carlisle when I was a kid. There's all these cool things that I mean, I even drove a Corvette, my dad's 60 Corvette to my wedding with my wife and when I high school prom. I've got these things in me, but they always seem to age out quite quickly. And when the new one comes out, I do understand that the mid-engine one's cool, but honestly, it makes me like even more the front engine one with the giant engine, because that to me is that real dominant era of what was that? You remember seeing those videos in 2007, 2000, I think it was 2008 or 2009 of the Flying Lizard car with Jörg Bergmeister driving, and I think Jan Magnussen in the
Yep.
the C6R, C7R. Like that to me brings more, to me it's more interesting. But the thing about this that's great, and it's great, it's just like when Tesla came out, all of the other electric car manufacturers like Porsche that had to make the Taycan better. For me, seeing this car come out with 1,000 horsepower and all that stuff, that's going to do nothing but push the envelope to make the next GT2 RS better. That's going to make the next Ferrari whatever better. It's all of those things that make the other brands move along. Personally, I could care less about the new ZR1. I'm happy that it makes a zillion horsepower. People are going to buy them. They're going to sell them for $50,000 over, and then 3 months later, just like the Z06, everybody's going to lose their butt on them. For me, I'm just happy that it's going to make all the other performance car manufacturers step up their game.
Damn it, he's right.
He is right. He is
He
very
is
right.
right.
Yeah,
He is
he
right.
is.
By the way, there is a great video that Jason Cammisa, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, who has his favorite cars is Scirocco, his Mark II Scirocco, which is awesome. But Jason Cammisa, who did an unbelievably good video, one of the best car videos I've ever seen for Hagerty. You guys have got to watch it. Just trust me, it is a long story on the Z06s and the rest of it, which even if you're not a Corvette guy, he did such a freaking good job on this video. It's bonkers. The comments where people were like, I don't even like the content. I just love the video that you did. The editing and this, everything was just beautiful. All right, let's move on to one of our favorite segments. Let's move on to this or that. So this is where we basically find things that are, generally speaking, on Bring a Trailer, and we're going to compare this or that. And then what we have to do, though none of us ever follow the rules, is that we have to then present why we are preferring this over that. Or no, we present this or that, and then the other hosts have to then choose which they would choose. Does that make sense? I think did I even say the rules right, or did I change them again?
I think you're close
We'll
enough.
make them up on the fly here.
Okay,
Close
well,
enough.
we
Close
do our
enough.
best. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
So it was my
That's the
goal.
smart move.
It was my goal to do non-Porsche cars and things that I always talk about cars that when I was growing up, they were super impactful to me. When I was a porter at a Porsche dealership in college, it was between like 2002 to 2005, which was an interesting time for Porsche. I was more on the Porsche side, but they had Porsche, Volkswagen, um, Volvo, Jaguar, a whole bunch of different brands in Northeastern Ohio. And they would let me drive 996 Turbo X50s, like all kinds of really cool stuff. And even 2004 GT3s when they first came out, like real mind blowing stuff that I didn't expect. But the one car that they got in at another brand that they never let me drive was a Mark IV R32. I have a client that has promised me that if they ever sell it, I'm first in line. It's a Black Magic Pearl one owner car. And to me, more so than miles, I like low owner cars because the first person spent all the money on the car, so they need to make sure that they keep the car up. So the first car that I found is a one owner R32. It closed on Bring a Trailer. I apologize, it was a couple of months ago, but I don't believe the market changed much since then. But it sold for 22.3 with fees, 70,000 miles, cleanish Carfax from what I recall, other than some stupid covers on the taillights. The car seems right. It's my favorite color for the car, which is reflex silver, which is if you played Gran Turismo 3 or 4, when you got the HPA R32, that's the color the car came in. That to me was peak Volkswagen. I'm a VW head. I had a bunch of Mark III Jettas. Love them. Still have a Mark 7.5 GTI. I think it's a super great car. The other car, which to me, this closed for a pretty cheap amount for being such a nice car, is a 2001 Audi S4 Avant station wagon. I had a B5 S4 Nagara Blue, loved the car. Everybody's aspirational car was always an Avant. So for me, it's really hard for me to make the decision. These are both mid-20s cars. The Audi is super unreliable, but it's a really great car.
Paul has one for sale, Casey.
Oh, you do?
It's gone, but he's not wrong.
Well, I will
He's not
tell.
wrong.
So the thing that like anytime I smell coolant outside of a car makes me terrified from my ownership experience of owning my B5 my B5 Audi. It was such a great car, one of my best driving experiences that I can ever remember, which we'll talk about some other time, occurred in that car and using the 20 well, back then it wasn't it was like a oh man, what year was that? It was like 2008. I used a 7-year-old navigation CD that I put in the trunk of it, and it was this little. It was crazy the way that it worked. But that's my this or that. Low owner, 70,000 mile Mark IV R32 or a Audi S4, Audi B5 S4 Avant stick shift, all the right stuff. The one that I picked out is in Casablanca white, which isn't my favorite car, but it's up there.
All right. So, Dave, you get to choose first the Audi or the
that-
Nissan?
No,
well,
it's Volkswagen.
no, the
Volkswagen.
Oh, Volkswagen.
Right.
Sorry.
How dare you?
The other R32.
Sorry.
The 04 VW for me, for sure. I've always loved the hot hatches. This car, I like the styling. I've always liked the styling on these cars. This one that you particularly picked out, Casey, looks like a really nice example. Well treated. I just think they're great balanced cars, fun to drive, a lot of value for the money, and probably, although both part of Volkswagen Group, probably a bit more reliable, I'd say, than the S4 Avant.
Paul, how about you?
So when I saw that Casey picked these two, I I was angry because first of all, I was triggered because I had an Audi S4 B5 Avant. Talk about a POS. Hated that car. It's horrible. And the performance of it isn't even that great dynamically. But here's the kicker. Because then, Casey, you sent me on the stupidest time-sucking rabbit hole looking for Mark IV GTIs. Because, and here's the irony of it all. If you remember the 337, which is really what started the whole R32, the 337, and this is hilarious, Tim, that was 2001 or 2. That was literally VW Vortex, the biggest dumpster fire of a forum pushing Volkswagen to release the 337 edition to the US. And there was very few. And I ended up getting one that was 6 months old. It was reflex silver. It was 6-speed manual, no sunroof, Brembo brakes. I mean, it was a really cool car. And this was when I was before I had Auto Kennel, just flipping through cars. And we had a baby in 2002 or 2001. I'm like, I can't keep this. I need to get something more practical. And I sold it to buy a 1-year-old S4 Avant. And the worst buyer's remorse. And the thing is, Casey, I spent at least a whole evening looking at 337s. And actually, as much as the R32 is cool, I would get a 337 or a 20th anniversary, which is basically a 337 with a few more colors.
Paul, why did
So,
you do this when you said we had a baby? What is
Oh, we
this?
had a baby. Like
You did this.
because like everyone who has a kid thinks they got to buy the biggest, stupidest vehicle because the kid's going to come with so much crap. And the reality is the Golf 337 was such an easier car to own because when I put the kid in the back seat in a car, car seat facing the wrong way, there was actually room. When I put it in the B5 Avant, it had less back seat room. And then when you pop the seat on a GTI, it would just do this whole maneuver where it fling forward and I could stand up and drop our daughter into the seat. And so here I was, had a kid, better get a station wagon, better get an SUV, better get something bigger, get rid of the 337 to buy a wagon because I think it'll be better. And it was everything about it from a driving standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint, and from just a practicality of having a kid and putting them in the car and carrying stuff. It wasn't bigger. And there's of all the cars I've owned, there's one car that really pulls hard in the heartstrings, and I will have another Mark IV GTI and preferably a 337.
Well,
so
all
my
Utes
buddy,
all
go
Utes
ahead.
are just jacked up, hatches anyway. And just the fashion trend was for people just to want these big, stupid Utes, And the reality of it is that they don't, generally speaking, have much more carrying capacity than if you want to predict the future, you can pretty much assume that hatchbacks are going to come back in vogue.
And just to throw something at it, I mean, going to your point with the hatchbacks, a Macan is basically a slightly lifted
Golf.
hot hatch Golf. And when you look at like 15, 16 Macan turbos, they're less money than this R32, less money than the B5 Avant. And they will do everything better dynamically, maintenance wise. And so you sit there going, I really like those, but for 17 grand, I'll go get a Macan, a 10-year-old Macan turbo.
That is crazy. Well, let's be honest. If you only could have one car, Golfs are pretty much the best cars you could ever have. They're brilliant. I mean, there is no argument against that. At least I've never heard a good one anyway. All right. So who wants to go next? This
Well,
or that?
what are you picking, Tim? Are you
I
picking
definitely choose the Golf. I would
right.
definitely choose the Type. I mean, Julie and I had a Type R, and I loved it. I regret selling it. And I've had a ton of Volkswagens. I put some pictures on Instagram of our Scirocco that has the 3.2 liter VR6 in it, and our van, our B32 Tribute. I love old Volkswagens. We all grew up on them. Casey, I'm curious. You're a millennial, basically. Volkswagens didn't have the same level of appeal when you were growing up because you had more choices?
No, it was huge. So that is really where I cut my teeth. I started, my buddy had a Corrado, G60 Corrado, which was great. I learned how to change oil in I had a Mark III Jetta, was kind of my first real car. I had a Spitfire before that, but I had a Mark III Jetta 2-liter, Spitfires, death traps. But I had a Mark III Jetta 2-liter and then had two other Mark IIIs after that. And just like Paul said, I was on VW Vortex Mark III, Mark IV, Car Lounge. I spent so much time between 1998 and 2005 on VW Vortex, going to H2O International and doing all this stuff. But one quick thing, Paul, my buddy that hates front wheel drive cars just had his 997 second gen serviced up at Beeline with Nick. And I think Nick let him borrow his 337 for like a little bit just to get around. And my buddy was like, this car's amazing. I was like, I know, man. I was like, there's that era of cars, other than the fact that they stink so bad, like crayons inside. I owned a Mark IV for like a month because the smell just drove me crazy. A Mark IV Jetta, that is.
Yeah.
The smell drove me crazy, but that era to me, and like you said, the 25ths when they were like in yellow and jazz blue, great cars going back to the Mark III life. But yeah, 337 with those kind of shot peen finished BBS RC wheels. I mean, I honestly should have put that one up, but I am a big R32 guy, which is why I went.
I'll be back in a second.
We didn't hear him, and talk. And so that car by Beeline Coffee. So Nick at Beeline.
Yep.
Um, I've been on rallies with him in that car,
Sure.
and it's sort of always for sale, and it's tempting. I mean, the biggest thing I have against it is Nick is a hot rodder, so the reason your friend loved it is he put a big ass turbo on that car. It is not the same car. It is really, really fast. And I get torn because I don't necessarily want it modified or raced out. Hard to find a 337. And we'll do this another subject, Casey, because I definitely have a bone to pick about it has to be a one owner car. I hear that all the time. Market Tim for another conversation. The controversy of how a one owner car is better, and I don't think it is. But anyway, I'll go next if you want on my 3-car or
This or that.
I have this or that or this. I have a fascination of daily drivers, and I love the idea of what would be the next daily driver, which is ironic because I live 2 miles from the shop and I don't really need a daily driver. But like you, Casey, I looked at 3 non-Porsches, like cars that I would actually want. And so these cars are similar miles, similar price, a little bit different era. We have the classic E39 M5, a 6-speed manual. Everyone loves it. What's not to love? A 2007 Audi RS4, also 6-speed manual. And then you have kind of the sleeper, a 2016 Chevy SS sedan, 6-speed manual, which if you can get past the stigma of driving what looks like your grandpa's Buick, they're amazing cars. I've had friends who've taken them on rallies. So these 3 cars all have, let's see, the BMW and the Audi all have 110,000 miles. Actually, all of them do. Even the 2016 Chevy has 13,000 miles. They're all priced in the low 30s to mid 30 range. So, which would are you guys familiar with the Chevy SS sedan?
It
looks like a cop
it's like a
car.
Holden.
It's a
right?
Holden.
It's one of those like Australian cars.
Yeah, they're a 6.2 liter LS3 V8 with a 6-speed manual, and they are shockingly good cars. Their only downside is the interiors are made by Play School and they're garbage. So you have an M5 in the classic Le Mans Blue. Those are great. That's 38,000. It's an '01. If we all know about them, the Vanos system, and I mean they're expensive cars to own. They really are for the driving experience. And now I sold a couple 2007 RS4s. They only came in a manual. They are not as performance driven as the BMW, but I think Audi makes a great interior. And once again, not as bad as the B5 S4s, but still probably the most expensive to maintain. So, which would you guys pick? Tim, we'll start with you. You look, baffled.
No, not baffled. I was just thinking about it. I wouldn't choose either of the first 2 because you will easily spend what you paid for it over a couple of years in maintenance and upkeep. And I love Casey's comment about the smell of antifreeze when you're walking past a car. It's instant mortification. I would go with the Chevy actually, and for all the reasons that you stated, because first of all, anyone can work on it. Second of all, there's so many really cool hot rod parts for those things. And let's just be honest, nobody's going to give a crap about it. You don't care where you park that damn thing. You don't care about the door dings. You don't care about nothing on that thing. It would be the perfect daily driver that also has a fun aspect to it. And weren't those cars weren't built were they built in the United States or were they built in Australia? I think those cars yeah. Did you say Australia, Dave?
Yeah, I did. Australia. That's where they were built.
And I think one of the best things, because they are almost 15 years newer than the other cars. They have the Chevy mag ride system, which is probably one of the best.
Do you know that's the suspension they also use in Ferraris, believe it or not?
Yep. Didn't GM develop it for
Yeah, they did.
Ferrari?
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. Yeah.
All right. So that's my choice. It's up to you. Who do you choose to pick on next, Paul?
Oh, go ahead, Dave. Let's hear it.
Well, I think for me, that's an easy choice. All the maintenance issues aside, the E39 M5 to me is one of the greatest grocery getter performance, 4-door sedans ever. I've been lucky enough to own one. I just enjoyed the hell out of driving that car every time I would get in it. The minute you turn the key, the sounds it would make, and just the performance of the car as a reasonably big, heavy sedan. I just think those cars, it's also the epitome to me of BMW design. Once it kind of passed this era, they all just started to look like shit. So this car is just, to me, is it hits on all cylinders.
Says
And
the guy with the shop that can work on things for
yeah,
free.
exactly. And by the way, I mean, well, I'll let Casey pick first because I don't want to bias his decision. Go ahead,
So
Casey.
I love Australian V8 supercar racing. I will preface this by saying that you guys are kind of talking me into the Chevy SS, but for a daily driver, something that's more important to me is interior. It's all about what I'm looking at. I have one of my best friends owned an E39 M5. I know that they're really cool. I know that they're great cars. I really loved the Guy Ritchie Madonna video with Clive Owen driving a zillion years ago, where he's flinging her all over the back of the car. I think that was a 540, but that's beside the point. But I owned a 2004 A4 Ultra Sport 3-liter stick shift sedan. And to me, that was one of the best interiors I've ever had in a car. So there's not even a question in my mind. I'd pick the RS4.
Well, first of all, Tim and Casey, you're both right. I like your answers. Dave, you're wrong. I'm sorry. I think the E39 M5 fanboy crap is just sort of emperor has no clothes, because the only way I would have picked the BMW, and I looked for it because I really wanted to put not an M5, is the '03 540 M-Tech manual, which was actually a better car to live with. It was less jumpy. Like if you've driven, I mean, Dave, you owned one. You
Yeah.
want to just drive docile because you're just going somewhere chill. Trying to start in first gear in an E39 M5 off the line without making the guy next to you think you're racing, because they're just so aggro. But as much as I like the Chevy, I agree with Casey. An Audi is a nice place to be inside for sure.
Yeah. There you go. Well, okay. So is it my turn?
Yes.
All right. Mine's very easy. We kind of talked about this last week, but I have been watching these because you guys got me interested in them. All right. So choice number one is the 2024 Porsche Dakar. I know we're going to be talking about these, Dakar type things on another show. And the second choice would be a 2023 Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato. All right. So interestingly enough, they were both bid to, AKA didn't sell. 200, basically the same price. Well, the Lambo was 270 and the Porsche was basically 290. But choosing between the two, I think obviously the Lamborghini's got the V10, which sounds, I don't know if anyone has ever said that doesn't sound anything other than amazing. The Lamborghini they definitely made fewer of those than the Porsches. The Lamborghini is definitely going to be something that probably long term is going to be seen as even weirder than, and more, side glances of what the hell were you thinking, which makes a car cool, versus the Porsche, because Porsche's got this long history of these four-wheel drive cars. So I'm just curious what you guys would choose if you had roughly $300,000 to spend, this or that.
I mean, it's
I'll
Strato,
start.
Strato all day long. For everything you just said, Tim. But the thing about the Strato is, so you're not caught up in the whole Lambo, mortgage bro Huracan scene. You have to have a roof rack and you have to put a lot of shit on it just so you are weirder. But I think in the long term, I think that's a more interesting car, because Lamborghini's not going to do that experiment again.
You notice how a lot of people are putting their Porsche Dakars for sale, and those don't seem to be doing well in the flip market. And I wonder if a lot of people got into them and just didn't like the side glances and the what the hell are that looks. And maybe that was your fashion buyer that bought those initially. Certainly not somebody that was going to use it as intended.
I think especially if you bought the liveried examples, I think
Yeah.
those just don't age well. One of my clients did paint to sample Albert Blue, and it looks with HRE kind of off-road looking wheels, and it looks fantastic. He still has the roof rack, but he took all the crap off, so it's just the roof rack. And it's weird. The Dakar looks better in that setup, whereas the Lamborghini, when the flares are a different color, make it look whiter, and the more shit on the roof makes it look better. So I think depending on how you stage them.
And let's be honest, if you're choosing the Lamborghini, you'd get the ugliest freaking spec you could find. It'd have to be baby shit, orange or brown, depending what you fed your kid. It'd have to be some horribleness combination, the worst interior ever,
Yep.
low poverty spec, just an absolute, and it would the more cool. Whereas the Porsche, if it's got a rock chip, oh son, you got to worry about that. Better put triple layer that bad boy with PPF.
I got a scuff on my skid plate. Damn it.
Exactly. You'll never win at the Porsche. Okay, now we're making fun of Porsche. I got Paul to make fun of Porsche people. That just happened. Oh my God. All right. So Dave, you're next. This or that?
I would take the Dakar, and I'm assuming this car is going to be used something like it was intended, and I would just have a lot more confidence in the long run having that car, given Porsche's background. And I would agree with Paul that I would not want it with a Rothman's livery on it or something like that. Just give it to me straight. But I think there's something about that car that would just make it more inspiring. Plus, I'm a Porsche guy. I mean, I just can't see any Lamborghini you're going to lay out in front of me. If that's one of the two choices, I'm just not going there.
Of course, you do know Lamborghini is basically still kind of a Porsche because it's owned by
Yes,
VAG.
I do, but it's still Lamborghini. It's a lifestyle thing, Tim.
No, I do agree. I actually concur with you, but I'd still choose the Lamborghini. Oh, I just said what I would get. Okay, Casey, your turn.
So I really love the idea of hooning a Lamborghini. I don't fit in them, unfortunately. Huracans, I'm like 6'3" and change with a long inseam, and I just don't fit well in the car. And also, I would never pick a Lamborghini under any circumstance, regardless of the question posed. I will hold this up in front of me. I'm a big Team Rothmans guy. A zillion years ago, when I went to the, I was out in Paul's neck of the woods at Porsche Motorsport, and they let me crawl around number 187 of the 959 Dakar cars, which was really awesome because it was still covered in dirt. And there was a big sign on the windshield that said, "Do not remove dirt. This is dirt from 1987," which to me is like the coolest thing in the world. Tim and I have a friend in common that owns a Le Mans winning 962 in Rothman's livery, which I am very familiar with that car. And he sent me a video a while ago of him towing the 962 with the Dakar, which was really rad. And of course, the rough roads on the side of it, to me, it's unfortunate, but I understand why they can't advertise, a defunct cigarette brand on the side of a car. And I'll tell you, 992s are not my favorite generation of Porsche, but I would always have to pick a full Rothman spec done with all of the correct in-period stickers Dakar, hands down, as you see one over top of my left shoulder.
Well, so you and Dave are wrong. Paul and I were right. All right. So next topic. Let's move on. All right. Now we got, I know we're running a little long, but Dave messaged me on WhatsApp a hilarious potential, completely off color, probably will result in us getting removed from YouTube, two-car garage. Are you ready, Dave?
I am. We'll just suggest it's a little DEI here. So,
but let me tee it up. So let me tee it up in case we have any first-time viewers or listeners. So we're stealing this idea, credit where credit is due, from Chris Harris's podcast, and the gist of it is that each week, almost every week, we're going to give you guys a different scenario and you're going to help us choose for these people that Dave's about to describe which two cars they should get with a specific budget. All right, so there it is. Dave, go for it.
All right. This is called the Ithaca Keg Catastrophe. In the vibrant college town of Ithaca, New York, where craft brews and activist stickers thrived, Riley and Sage, both 38, had built a lively life together. Riley, an Ithaca townie who skipped college for street smarts, was a bartender at the Pine Tavern, her maple-infused cocktails and sharp wit making her a local legend. Sage, a Cornell alum and women's studies professor at her alma mater, spent her days dissecting feminist theory and her nights spinning Ani DeFranco, aka and Katie Lang vinyls. Their college town cottage, strung with fairy lights and vintage protest posters, was the sanctuary until chaos hit. One wild night at the Pine Tavern, a faulty beer keg exploded in a foamy blast, sending Riley diving behind the bar like a seasoned stunt double. The eruption thrashed half the tavern stock, but Riley escaped with minor bruises and an epic tale. The brewery's insurance shelled out $100,000, and Riley brushed foam off her flannel, grinned at Sage. Bang, we're loaded. Time to replace our cars. The car situation was dire, in fact, as a flash flood had turned Cascadella Creek into a torrent, sweeping their '08 Subaru Outback and 2010 Honda Fit into the Susquehanna River. With their rides now river-wrecked, Riley and Sage needed new wheels. We need cars that fit our Ithaca vibe, green, practical, with style that stand out at the co-op, Sage said, adjusting her glasses. Riley, still hyped from her keg-dodging heroics, wanted a rugged ride to match her tavern swagger. Sage needed an eco-friendly car for Cornell community commutes and snowy gored roads. With $100 to split, they hit the dealership for brand new cars to revive their Ithaca groove.
I'm sorry, we might not be doing this segment anymore because no one's ever going to do better than that.
That was awesome.
No one
Well,
ever
I got to
will.
give a little credit to Grok here on this one.
I'm not even going to try. And I know you probably used AI. And if you did, oh my God, you need to teach me how to use AI. That was so freaking good. I'm definitely going last on this one, or I should go first to make it easy on me. But Paul, actually, Casey, do you mind if you go first?
Oh,
What's the car
man.
budget? What's the total
100
budget,
grand.
Dave? 100 grand.
It's $100,000, and this was for new cars, so they could kind of pick something that fit them.
New?
We've got new
Like
cars.
brand new?
Yeah, these were new, brand new. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Both were 2025 picks here. It makes, they actually suggest, which I think is hilarious as well, because they suggest the cars that they.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
I won't. I'm not
Don't say
gonna.
it.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. I did
All right.
take the Subaru Outback and the Honda Fit off the table, so your choices are narrowed here.
Okay.
Casey's thinking, look at him.
Geez. Okay. So as far when you say green, to me, a green car doesn't necessarily mean fuel efficient, but it means something that's going to last for a long time. So as we talked about earlier, I mean, I have a FJ62 with 317,000 miles on it. That's way more green than any Tesla ever produced. I mean, call it what it is. So I'm going to say one of them should be a 4-cylinder Macan, pretty efficient, upper 20s highway fuel efficiency. Golly, you could probably get it's still new, ex-service loaner Macan, certified pre-owned, 60 grand, maybe somewhere in there. We'll start there. So $40,000 for another. Okay. Golf R.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big green new car guy, but those are both cars that will last a long time when taken well care of. And they certainly will stand out. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'll go next. I mean, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, they'd end up with a pair of Teslas, like all their other friends, but that is not happening anymore. They're going to have an F-150 Lightning, which is the electric truck, which turns out to be a pretty damn good truck. And they're going to probably be shopping for some kind of camper attachment that goes on top of it, because they're going to do stuff. Now, as much as it's a little too on brand to do another Subaru, because they used to make fun of their friends with the Prius, and because they look like crap. But the new Priuses, as much as we love to hate Priuses, they look pretty damn good. And they're going to also get a new Prius. So the truck's, 60 grand. The Prius is about 30 grand. They're going to put a camper van on. Boom. They've got it nailed. That's it.
And you can come up with good answers if you're given more than 8 seconds to think about it.
Well,
Yes.
no, your Casey, you did a great job. So what would be, okay, so we're supposed to, let's just pause here. So of Casey's, those are the suggestions. I think those are both great suggestions. Paul's were great suggestions. And now I have to try to do better than both of what you guys said, which is going to be really difficult. So this is what sucks. And I'm learning, I don't want to go last next time. I want to go first. All right, so
second is key.
Second. Oh, you're very strategic, my friend. All right. So here, yeah, you're right. Now I'm thinking about it. All right. So here would be my first suggestion. And those are great ideas. But I'm really shocked that neither one of you guys, no one mentioned the new VW van ID4.
Because they're 80 grand.
Well, that's true. And are they?
Nah, you can
Yes.
get a $60,000 get you one. I've got
Oh,
literally got one
a
right here
black
right now.
one, a black
Yeah,
one. But I mean, we're
yeah.
talking new prices. New prices. I thought they start at like 75,000.
Somebody's got to pull this up. I'm
I'm
pretty
pulling
sure.
up. Oh, you'll see. So the starting MSRP is, yes, you're right, 50, 60 grand. But most of them really, by time you put, typical German, by time you put any options on them, you're at 70 grand.
There's no options. These girls like these things basic, man. What are you talking
But
about?
they're
Right.
not going to get an all black one or an all white one. They're going to have it in a cool color. They have to have it in a cool color,
Oh,
right?
Lord,
Green.
now we're arguing. Did we even get? Yeah, that is true.
All right,
Unfortunately.
what's your second one? Maybe we'll
Well,
make it.
unfortunately, what I wrote down was the new Prius because I actually agree with you, and I agree with you on everything you said. And the nice thing about the combination of those two is the van's all electric, and the Prius is a hybrid. So that I think that combination of things would do really good. And the other thing that's about both of these vehicles is there's certain cars. The Prius is one of them. The new Volkswagen van is one. Miata is one that transcends demographics in a very interesting way that I think is almost unbelievable to try to conceive of. It just the market accepts it that way. The minis back in the 60s are the same way. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or you're a piper, you were able to drive the mini.
The
So
modern mini is the same way. The modern mini is the same way. It reaches every market
that's
demographic.
true. That's true. But those new, I mean, that would have been a good choice too, but I'm not sure these are convertible gals. I just don't think they are.
No, but just like a new Mini Cooper Clubman or whatever. I think that's a good car. I mean, I don't know what those are. Probably 40 grand.
Just so I don't say Prius, I'm going to backtrack. And I believe I read that Fiat's about to come out with the EV version of their 500 again. So I'm going to say the EV version of Fiat 500, even though it's probably a terrible car. And the VW van electric. All right, cool.
Good choices. Good choices, Tim. I like them.
Dave, this is your example. Do you have any closing thoughts on your two
Well,
car
no, I
garage?
was going to say I'll give you. It's funny on some of these when you plug them in for whatever reason. Grok wants to suggest American cars quite often. A lot of references to Dodge RTs and some, but that's not in this particular story. I was very specific with this particular story. Riley, the barmaid, 2025 Toyota Tacoma RTD off road. That's what she snags. 278 horsepower turbo four-cylinder 4x4 grit, perfect for hauling bar supplies or hitting Tagonic Falls. Beautiful area, by the way, if you ever get up to central New York. It's a lunar rock paint and bold stance. Lets her roll into the Pine Taverns with small town swagger, ready to load a keg. Securely this time, obviously, securely. Okay, now Sage, much more practical, of course. She is the women's studies professor at Cornell. She picks a 2025 Volvo XC40 Recharge, an all-electric SUV with 402 horsepower and a 293-mile range, ideal for Ithaca snowy winters and eco-conscious ethos. There you go.
That's actually really good suggestions.
Those are
It
really
is.
We're
good.
good.
Damn
Yeah.
it. Elon
Yeah.
Musk owns Grok. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
You guys play around on AI and Grok is 100% more sarcastic and unhinged, especially when you ask it to be. And it's so much funnier
Yes.
than the other AIs. You could get Grok to, if you really push it, you could get it to really, become unhinged and start talking about really wackadoo stuff. But in any event, hey guys, I think that's the pod for today. So next up, Paul, if you don't want to for the next 2 weeks, trust me, it's perfectly
No, I
understandable.
want to try. It's just hard to say. So next week we do it.
You
I
show
will,
up, you show up. You
I'll
don't, you
have
don't.
just been finishing the tour at Mercedes-Benz factory tour. So, which if it works out perfect, I'll have a great background. So
Yeah, well, but seriously, don't feel weird if
yeah.
enjoy the hell out of that trip to Germany because I've never done it before. I was glad to hear Casey had a lot of travel insights, so I'll be picking his brain about it. Have you done that world tour, that trip to Germany, like they're describing, Dave?
No, well, I've been to Germany, but not what they're doing. So I'm anxious to kind of hear how this goes as well.
Yeah, me too. So in the meantime, thank you for listening to Full Throttle Talk. Do continue to like, follow, subscribe. And Paul is putting up some absolutely astonishingly good little short reels over in our Instagram feed. So make sure you're following us there. The contact information for all three of these guys, if you would like to do business, if you want to learn about how Casey is I'm going to be working with them to take after car collections. Paul is, Paul, he's world famous Porsche connoisseur, and evidently he has some knowledge bases and some other things too that he lets creep out sometimes. And then Dave is somebody I've used for restoration and work on some of my vintage Porsches as well. He's in North Carolina, California, Washington, D.C. area, but you can connect with all three of these guys and the links are down below. In the meantime, thank you for listening to Full Throttle Talk and have a fantastic day.